very interesting session for you, an interview with the celebrated author Vikas Swarup, conducted by Shri Rajesh Williams. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, them and they, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you an Allahabad boy, a person who studied in Boys High School and in the University of Allahabad and rose to become a senior diplomat as well as a celebrated author of contemporary India. From where he got the time to run the country as well as to write his novels is something that we must now discuss with him in his interview. Shri Vikas Swarup was born on the 22nd of June 1961 to a family of lawyers. He retired from the Indian Foreign Service as the Secretary West at the Ministry of External Affairs, India, on the 30th of June 2021. And he has previously served as High Commissioner of India in Canada and has been the official spokesperson for the Ministry of External Affairs. He is best known as the author of the stupendously successful novel Q&A, which was adapted in a film that we all loved, Slumdog Millionaire. This film, which won the Best Film Award for the year 2009 at the Academy Awards and the Golden Globe Awards as well as the BAFTA Awards. Now, since this is a session on contemporary literature and how Mr. Vikas Swarup is a part of it, I will just quickly list his novels in front of you. The first novel, of course, I've already talked about, is Q&A. The second novel is Six Suspects. Then his third novel is The Accidental Apprentice. And his latest novel, published by Simon & Schuster, is The Girl with the Seven Lives. Shri Vikas Swarup's novels animate a post-independence, post-colonial contemporary India as it surges towards becoming a giant global presence. This society in transition and in a phase of rapid growth is depicted truthfully in the novels of Mr. Swarup, who is an acclaimed spokesperson for the narratives of contemporary India. Interviewing him is Shri Rajesh Williams. Rajesh Williams is also born and raised in Allahabad, and he is a professional editor and a writer with a background in instructional design, technical writing, technical editing, and teaching. He has taught English and soft skills at the Shulini University, Solan, and Chandigarh University. He is currently writing his first novel and making efforts to get his book of haiku and other poems published. Like all poets, trying to get his poems published. Anyway, we wish him all the best and success in his endeavors. And over to Mr. Vikas Swarup and Mr. Rajesh Williams to give us a very, very scintillating and exciting session. Thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you.
Hello. So, welcome to this event, Vikas sir. I'm happy to see you here.
Pehli baat hai, I'm not Vikas sir.
Okay. I have read two of your novels. One is Slumdog, but it's called Q&A, not Slumdog. And the other one is The Girl with the Seven Lives. And let me tell you, I'm not trying to flatter you for saying this, but that I really enjoyed reading both. Good thrillers, and I recommend these books to you as well. Buy them and read them. You'll enjoy. So that's what Mr. Swarup is all about. You know, his novels are very exciting. They don't bore you to tears, you know, like many do. So if you have the time and the inclination to read, buy some of his novels. Okay. The first question is, what role has Allahabad played in shaping you as a diplomat and a writer? What are the memories of your school and university days?
Yeah, indeed, this question has never been asked before because this is the first time I'm doing a literary festival in Allahabad. So first of all, I think a huge round of congratulations to Tigmanshu Dhulia and Zafar Bhak and Ramchari and the entire team for putting together Bazm-e-Virasat. I think this was a festival that was needed by the city of Allahabad, which has such a glorious cultural heritage and such a glorious lineage. And I think just to memorialize it and to just provide an opening to the newer generation that, you know, this is what Allahabad's legacy is all about and how this legacy has to be carried forward. So I think it's a wonderful initiative. Technically speaking, today I was supposed to be in Pune, attending the Pune Literary Festival by the National Book Trust. But when Tigmanshu called me and he says, you know, you have to be in Allahabad on the 21st, I said, of course, Allahabad comes first. So I just came here. So thank you, Rajesh, for that lovely question. What role did Allahabad play in my becoming a diplomat and a writer? So I would say Allahabad played probably the most important role in my life. In fact, it shaped my entire formative years. I spent my entire childhood in Allahabad. I spent my entire, up to graduation in Allahabad only. I could have gone to St. Stephen's, Delhi, or any other colleges in Delhi after my class 12, but I chose to stay in Allahabad, which was also partly a mistake because 2 years we had 0 session, so my graduation took 4 years instead of 2. But anyway, that's what's done is done. So look, I grew up as I was introduced in a family of lawyers. My grandfather, Babu Jagdish Swarup, was a man of very eclectic tastes. He was, of course, a celebrated lawyer, but then he also was a painter, he was a writer, and because his interest varied, ranged over a large territory, not just legal books. So right next to, legal judgments from the University of Australia, from the Supreme Court of Australia, would be Albert Camus' The Outsider, or Khushwant Singh's The Train to Pakistan. And I think one of the advantages that I had of growing up in this pre-internet era was, you could watch a movie in Palace Theatre once or twice a month, or you could read books, or you could play sports. There was really nothing else to do. And because I had this 10,000 book library available in my house itself, that is how my love of reading started. It was my grandfather who got me into reading. So I did 2 kinds of reading. One was the usual reading in English, starting with Enid Blyton, and then graduating to Agatha Christie and Alistair MacLean and Desmond Bagley, and basically the thriller writers. And the other reading I did was Indian writers in Hindi. So that was one of the formative influences. I read most of the Indian writers in Hindi. I read Upendranath Ashk, I read Suryakanti Tripathi Nirala, I read Mahadevi Verma, of course I read Harvansh Rai Bachchan. In fact, my grandfather was the lawyer of Mr. Bachchan, and on many occasions he used to come to our house and he used to recite Madhushala, which is still, I think, preserved in our house on those spool tapes which were in prevalence at that point in time. So reading Agatha Christie and Enid Blyton, I was always marveled that, these people are eating scones. What is a scone? Because we had never heard, I had never eaten a scone. So it was that early exposure to these kinds of writings that inculcated in me an interest in foreign cultures. That, if I want to understand what a scone is, if I want to understand how do Englishmen live, then I have to visit England. And at that time, as you know, India was a closed economy. Foreign was very exotic. In fact, people used to queue up even in front of diplomats' houses in Delhi to buy used socks just because they were, made abroad. That was the craze, pre-1991. So that was, I think, one of the reasons why I chose to join the Foreign Service. There was an interest, of course, in international relations, but more than that, there was an interest in Indian international culture. That was one reason. But the formative influence on writing came really from this early reading of Indian writers in Hindi that I did. So when I decided to write, and this was when I was posted in London between 2000 and 2003. Before that, I had never thought of being a writer at all. I always thought of myself as a reader. And the consciousness that I could be a writer just never hit me. It was only when I was posted in London between 2000 and 2003 that I first thought of writing, and there were two reasons. One, I discovered that many of my friends in the Foreign Service were writing fiction. And I said, I never imagined these people could be writers, but they are writing, so can I also write? Do I have a novel inside me? And the second thing was that I was in London. So I said, if I have to write, I better write in London, because before London, my posting was Addis Ababa. And I could have written 10 novels in Addis Ababa, but you know, I was not interested, because Addis Ababa is the last place you would want to write something, because what happens to it? Remember, this is 2000. In 2000, it was very much the gateway culture. You had to go through the agent and the publisher to get published. There was no Amazon 70-30 deal. There was no self-publishing. It was all through the gatekeepers. And the gatekeepers existed in London. So I said, okay. So when I decided to write, I said, first let me check out the competition, because of my early reading of all the thrillers, I wanted to write a thriller. But I said, let me find out who are my competitors going to be, because when I write a thriller, who am I competing against? So I went to the local library in London, and I said, give me the 10 best books by Indian thriller writers. And the librarian looked at me blankly and said, thriller books by Indian writers? I said, yes. She says, I don't know a single one. I said, what do you mean? I mean, come on, India has been writing for 50 years. There must be good thriller books. She says, if they are, we don't have them, and I have not heard of them. So I said, okay, which are the Indian writers you have? So then she gave me Vikram Seth, she gave me Arundhati Roy, she gave me Pankaj Mishra, she gave me Manal Suri, she gave me Raja Rao, which I had never read. All my reading was Western writers writing in English. Indian writers writing in English I had not read at all. So I said, okay. So I took those 20 books and I read all of them. And I discovered that all these people, from Vikram Seth to Arundhati Roy to everyone, they had written about society. I said, but look, I don't want to write a boring book about society. You know, a generational family saga from 1870 to 1975. I was not interested in that. But I said, if I write a thriller, it will probably not do well, because Indians don't write good thrillers. So I said, let me marry the two. I will write about society, but in a thrilling kind of way. So I think I created my own genre, which I call social thrillers. So that's how Allahabad impacted both my diplomatic career and my writing career.
See, the following passage has been taken from the inside of the front cover of your book, which is the girl
with the seven lives.
After a 35-year stint in the Indian Foreign Service, Vikas retired in 2021, but continued to share his vast knowledge and insights as the host of Diplomatic Dispatch, a weekly show on India's parliamentary channel, Sansad TV, aimed at demystifying diplomacy. What is it that makes diplomacy as complicated and hard to understand as you claim it to be?
Well, I would say this applied to diplomacy of the past, because at that time diplomacy was about a group of elite diplomats sitting inside a closed room and discussing something and not informing the rest of the world. They would only, a press release would come out, 3 or 4 lines. They discussed issues of mutual interest. You know, what was actually discussed was kept secret, because and that is what I think created this mystique around diplomacy, that, you know, this is something only done by a group of diplomats, and they discuss in a lot of jargon, and the rest of the world was not really aware of, you know, what was actually discussed. I think all that has changed in the 21st century. But in particular, I think social media has been a game changer. Now diplomacy is conducted not just by diplomats, but by anybody sitting here. Because anybody can have a view now, and they can express that view, and that view can sometimes have consequences. So my sense is that diplomacy is no longer the closed chamber that it used to be. It has become open. And what is more, now the press release has been replaced by the tweet, and the tweets are coming in real time, and most likely, because this is my own personal experience, 90 to 95% of what is discussed inside the room is now told to you in real time, sometimes while we are inside the meeting discussing itself. I myself, when Prime Minister Modi was meeting businessmen in Shanghai, I was tweeting from the meeting itself what Jack Ma has just said, you know, about the prospects of India. So I think that description of diplomacy as, you know, as something mysterious and something arcane is gone now. Diplomacy is now very much in the open. In fact, just a day before, I was giving a lecture to the Sushma Swaraj Institute of Foreign Service, to the new batch on public diplomacy. And public diplomacy is exactly this, diplomacy in the public. How do you enhance your image of your country by using the soft power tools at your disposal?
Now, the next question is, your book Q&A is the thrilling Rags to Riches novel. As you already know, the rags to riches archetype is a common theme in literature and popular culture. In a typical rags to riches story, the main character has a change in fortune, gaining wealth, power, or a partner. However, as this archetype has no room for unpredictability, the plot becomes predictable. A writer needs to keep in mind that the human mind is a deep mystery and human behavior is unpredictable.
The question was about rags to riches.
Rags to riches and
unpredictability of human life.
Yes.
Yes. So first of all, I would definitely contest your characterization of my book as a rags to riches story. The rags to riches story was the story of the film, which was called Slumdog Millionaire. My book was called Q&A. The central dynamic in Q&A was the question and answer format. And what I was trying to get through the medium of that book was, how does knowledge get created? When you sit in a hot seat, both Shamal Narayan, who's sitting here, and I, we used to be quizzers. We used to attend these college quizzes. And when you sit in the hot seat and you are asked a question, how do you answer that question? Where do you get that knowledge to answer that question? Is it only something that you have studied in school, in your textbook? Is it something you have overheard, sitting somewhere else? Or is it something which has related to your life? As I was mentioning to you, if somebody worked at Vikas Gorakhpuri's house as a cook or as a cleaner, and then he appears on Kaun Banega Crorepati, and the question is asked about Vikas Gorakhpuri, he'll be able to answer it. Because he worked there, he knows this person. So that is what I was trying to get at. What are the roots of knowledge? How does knowledge get created? And eventually I wanted to show that the greatest teacher in the world is life itself. And those who have graduated from the school of hard knocks, they know the value of every moment in life, and those moments can provide you the clue, not just to answering the questions on a quiz show, but the answers to life itself. And those kinds of people will not commit suicide, because they know the value of life also.
That's well said, of course. All right. Now, the next question is, your novels are surely unput-downable. I have experienced that. I'm not trying to flatter you by saying that. So they not only entertain, but also provide a snapshot of today's India. You have vividly portrayed the lifestyle of people in slums. Perhaps that's why your novels are a bit dark.
A bit dark?
A bit dark. I mean, that's what
No, I agree. I don't contest that.
However, your novels do not present your thoughts and ideas about how India can transition from a tradition-bound state to a modern state. Of course, novels should not be didactic, but they can at least give indirect suggestions. I don't want you to preach, certainly not. What are your comments on this matter? I mean, you can at least drop a hint,
Look, yes, you are right. Some of my novels traverse a very dark territory. But in all of my novels, there is light at the end of the tunnel. I like resolution, I like hopeful, I like an optimistic ending. For me, that's important. Because when a reader has invested time and money into my book, at the end of that book, I don't want the reader to reach for a sleeping pill and say, oh my God, what a depressing book it was. I'm going off to sleep, don't wake me up for 10 hours. And at the end of the day, my book, yes, traverses some dark elements of society. There's no doubt about it. But they are also about aspirational India. Because in India, I think, what is the thing about India that impresses me the most, and I think which impresses most foreigners the most, that even this beggar, under the gateway of India, who does not have maybe more than 2 stitches of clothing on his body, does not have 2 rupees in his pocket, he has a smile on his face. Because, the beggar says, I've already hit rock bottom, I can't go below this. So he's looking at the future with optimism. My future can only be better than what my past is. And I think this is very empowering because this is something that 2 or 3 foreigners have narrated to me. That when we go to India and we lament, oh my God, we have only $5,000 in our bank account. There is this beggar, he's got $2, not even $2 in his bank account, and he has a smile on his face. He's ready to face tomorrow with confidence. Then why the hell can I not do the same? So my books try to capture that sense of, forward advancement, aspirational India. Sudhir Mishraji mentioned in the previous session, it's not important what the source is where you're going to. I would say the same about my books. It's not important whether you come from the slums. It's important where you're going to. And as in the first book, Q&A, the guy from the slums eventually goes on to win ₹1 billion on the quiz show. So the whole idea is to show that every time you are trying to improve your life, even in the slums of Dharavi, nobody is moaning and groaning and saying, oh my God, where have I landed? They are all trying to make a better life for themselves and get out of that. Abroad, whenever I have seen the Indian diaspora, they start off at life in Wembley, where the other Indians live. But the moment they make money, they want to move to where the white people live. That is aspirational India. That is what drives the Indian mentality. We always want to do better. We always want to improve constantly. And I think that is what my books try to capture.
Yeah, I'll just add a footnote to what he said. Dharavi's turnover is ₹1 billion per year.
Absolutely.
It's not all that depressing out there. It looks dirty and filthy and there's lack of sunshine there. But then they make a lot of money.
No, but look, there also, Dharavi has layers. There is the really filthy Dharavi where you and I cannot stay even for 10 seconds.
Yes, you're right.
And there is the, more advanced Dharavi which is making watch strap buckles and Christian Dior, fake Christian Dior bags and things like that. And that is the slightly more prosperous Dharavi. And there, even the people who have made money, they want that sense of community. And that's why they continue to live there, even though he can afford a house in Nariman Point probably.
What are your future plans or goals as a writer? This is my last question.
So my future goal, look, as a writer, for me, I always want to test my own boundaries as a writer. So after I wrote my first book, Q&A, and believe it, I wrote this book when I was posted in London. I wrote it in just 2 months. And what has been published is my first draft. I wrote it without any expectation of success because I thought this is a tale about the underbelly of urban India. Before this, the books about India which had done well, social thriller kind of books are the books about the Raj or the Quartet, the palaces and yoga and Maharajas and elephants. This is a book about the slums, about the underbelly of urban India. So I thought this is a very Indian book which only an Indian audience will be able to relate to. I had no idea that one day this book will get translated into 47 languages. So I really wrote it as an Indian as an insider writing for insiders. But once this book became a hit, and even before the film came out, it was in 37 translations. Then the publishers started dropping hints that maybe you should do another sequel. Maybe you can write another book. Because in my first book, the lead character was not Jamal Malik. He was Ram Muhammad Thomas. And Ram Muhammad Thomas, I trace his life from the age 0 till age of 18. So they say maybe we can do another book called Another Q&A and we trace his life from 18 to 25 or something like that. And I said, no, I don't want to become a Superman or a Spider-Man franchise, I'm just repeating the same characters again and again. So I said, I'll write something totally different. And I had read a couple of books. I had read Italo Calvino's If on a Winter's Night a Traveler, and I had read David Mitchell's Cloud Atlas. And both are very experimental novels, which traverse a huge area. In fact, David Mitchell's novel traverses from 17th century to the 28th century or something like that. I like the conceit of those novels, but I said, look, these are too fragmented, they are just, here and there. What is the connection between them? So I said, let me write a murder mystery where I will look at India through 6 different eyes. But eventually they'll all be suspects in a murder investigation. And even when I was writing it, I knew this would not be half as successful as Q&A. Because Q&A was a very safe book. You create a lovable character and you create his adventures and the reader falls in love with that character and wants to follow him right till the end. But in a book like 6 Suspects, every 30 pages, the center of gravity changes. Every 30 pages, there is no central character. There is no center of gravity. So it was a very complex book. Some people get frustrated with it. Of course, there's a very good payoff at the end, but you can get frustrated. So I knew that it would not be even half as successful as Q&A, but I said, I don't care. I'm already getting a salary from the government of India. I want to test my own boundaries as a writer. Can I write a polyphonic narrative? Can I write about 6 different characters telling you their version of India in their own words, so to speak? So I tried that.
That reminds me of a movie called Rashomon.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
did that movie inspire
Well,
you?
no. In the sense, Rashomon is the same event narrated through different perspectives. This is 6 different eyes looking at India. 4 insiders. There is a Bollywood actress called Shabnam Saxena from Azamgarh. There is Munna Mobile, who steals mobile phones for a living. There is Jagannath Rai, a retired, Jagannath Rai is is a politician who's a mafia don. There is Mohan Kumar, who's a retired bureaucrat. Then there is Eketi, who's a tribal from the Andaman Islands, who still shoots with bows and arrows. And finally, there is Larry Page. He's not the Google founder. He's a forklift driver from Waco, Texas, who comes to India in search of a mail order bride. So the idea was, through these 6 different characters, I'm looking at India through 6 different eyes, because what you see looks very different from where you are looking at. So the Bollywood actresses, her version of India will be very different from that of the mobile phone thief or that of the tribal islander. So that's what I was trying to get at through the medium of this book, basically.
One question which is often asked is, do you, I think you can become a very good script writer.
Oh, okay.
And because it's very easy to adapt your books, kind of make a movie based on all the books.
Well, the fact is, first book became the movie called Slumdog Millionaire. Second book became The Great Indian Murder on Disney Hotstar. Third one is just being adapted. They are appointing a director and they are looking at a top Indian actress to play the lead actress of The Accidental Apprentice. And for the latest book also, there is already 4 or 5 different producers chasing me. So yes, maybe I write in a very visual kind of a way and it becomes easier for filmmakers who want to adapt it. But I would say one thing, which was also a theme from the previous session. When you write a novel, it is your own vision. Nobody, the editor or the agent or the publisher may have a different view. But if you don't accept them, you can still publish it and you can still, get your own vision imprinted onto the printed page. But writing a screenplay is writing by committee. Somebody will say, "Isme ye masala dal dijiye." Somebody will say, "Isme ye dal dijiye. Ye nahi chal raha hai, isko hataiye." Because the stakes are much higher in a film. In a book, if the book completely bombs, the publisher loses what? 1 lakh, 2 lakh, 3 lakh rupees. But if a film flops, you lose 10 crores, 15 crore rupees. So the stakes are so much higher, and that's why the reliance on formulas and getting all those kinds of ingredients. So my sense is that you compromise yourself when you write for a screenplay, because it is not your vision. Even look at Hollywood screenplays. You will have screenplay by Nick so-and-so and John so-and-so and David so-and-so and Griffin so-and-so, because 8 people have looked at it, and the final name will always be out of the director. The director always will have 2 pennies worth to add to any screenplay. As Sudhir Mishra said, he says, for me, I have to reimagine the script. So even the script is not final. The director is going to have a say. Look, I prefer to write novels.
That's interesting. So now the floor is open for questions. If you have
Yes.
questions, you can ask.
Who but Shamal to start the... Okay.
Good evening, sir. It's always a treat to listen to you, sir. I'm Dr. Manish, sir. By profession, I'm a psychologist, sir. Now, the first question what you answered, sir, that at your time, sir, reading book was the only option.
Correct.
And now, today, reading book is the last option.
Correct.
Now, if we see Generation Z, how to accommodate them in this transition, sir? How to accommodate them? I want to know a writer's perspective on this.
Yeah, look, I have said this in a previous interview also, that books have, unfortunately, in our time, books had a very exalted place. किताब ज़मीन पे गिर जाती थी, हम तुरंत उठा के ऐसे करते थे ना, विद्या है. We used to call it vidya, knowledge है. Even if it's a novel, but ज़मीन पे नहीं गिरनी चाहिए. A book should not touch the floor. This was what we were taught in Allahabad. A book should not touch the floor. It should not touch the ground. But unfortunately, now books have become a commodity. The guy who's going to buy a book is saying, "Arey, this is costing $4.99. Reebok is costing $7.99. Should I buy Reebok or should I buy the book?" So books have been commodified. And they are marketed also as a commodity now, unfortunately. Books have lost the exalted status that they had during the time I was growing up. So that has inevitable change. Now, how to get Generation Z interested in books once again, especially at a time when their attention is wandering. And they are all on Reels, they are all on OTT, they are, the image has drowned out the word. I think the answer to that is, there have to be books written in such a compelling way that you want to finish it. If the book does not, you see, attention spans being what they are, many people have told me, they give a writer 3 pages at best. If the writer does not get you in 3 pages, they are not reading that book. They may buy that book, but that book will only dominate the shelf, it will not be read. So you have to have books which people can relate to, which people can enjoy, and which can also give them something to think about. Because the difference, as I say, between an airport thriller and the kind of books I write is, airport thriller is all about the plot. You know, Delhi is about to be, nuclear bomb is about to go off in Delhi. And once the nuclear bomb has been diffused, you throw away the book because the characters don't remain with you. But when you write a book which has a lot of social commentary, which is also commenting on the status of the slums, on the fake degree racket, on what goes on in private hospitals, then even after you have closed the book, the characters remain with you and you reflect on some of those issues. So those are the kinds of books I think we need more of, so that the younger generation can relate to them. I mean, in a sense, the younger generation is reading. They are probably reading, you know, non-fiction. Non-fiction, for instance, is doing very well. Just look at the amount of self-help books that are available in the market now. I just returned from the Bangalore Literary Festival and I spoke to a couple of publishers and they say our fiction to non-fiction is now 15 to 85. 15% fiction and 85% non-fiction. So it means people are reading, they are probably not reading novels as much as they used to, and definitely I think the era of the 1,000 page novel is over. That is definitely over.
First of all, I mean, I guess there's a lot of nostalgia here. There are just two questions, Vikas Bhai, that I would want to ask of you. One is that because you said that thrillers was your genre, so to say. So, for writing something like a thriller, sitting all alone, because I also remember you're saying that your family had gone away and you had all the time to yourself when you were writing.
Correct.
So when writing a thriller, do you ever felt the need to bounce your ideas onto someone to understand how it is going to be received, or was it just lonely writing?
No, it was completely lonely. In fact, even my wife did not know that I was writing this novel. Okay. Nobody knew. I started writing this really as a challenge to myself. And I wrote in a very strategic way. You know, my training as a diplomat came in because I said, I spent 3 years writing a novel and it does not get published. My 3 years have been wasted. So I said, I'll write 4.5 chapters in 1 month, send it out to some 10 agents, see if I get picked up. And if I get picked up, I'll finish the novel. If I don't get picked up, I will, just give up writing and be a diplomat only. And luckily I got the agent, and that's how I finished that novel in that 1 month. That was there. But the idea was in my head. I did not discuss it with anyone because you see, too many cooks spoil the broth literally in fiction. Because as I said, a book is a very, very personal thing. A story is very personal. The same book you can love, the other person right sitting next to you can say, I hated that book, this is the worst book I've ever read. Because it's very personal. You bring your own personality into reading the book. And that is why if you consult 10 people will give you 10 different advice. And what will happen is your own vision will be lost. And then it will become a screenplay writing by committee. Right. So my advice to, young and budding writers is always this. First of all, write something unique. A story which has not been written before. Because then it will have value. If you are already writing something which has been written before, then what's the purpose? You are just changing some names and locations, but it's somebody else's story. So write your own story, and that story has to be unique to yourself, and it has to resonate with you first. You have to be the first reader.
The other question is, the time when you went into foreign service from Allahabad, I think you've just done your graduation, you never did your post-graduation. Time was when people would get into MA, top their MA, and either become lecturers or write the civil services and get into it. So, given qualifications academics-wise, you were just a graduate when you went into that.
I was the least qualified person in the foreign service.
I do not know.
Because most people had done their MA.
That is right. So I do not know whether you went on to acquire some other degrees after that or not. Now, we have had a tradition where generally it is the academics. I probably have it sitting in the audience here, Mrs. Neelam Sarangod, who I probably find she's one of the best wordsmiths that I have ever known. But
she is the best writer Allahabad has produced in English.
That is right. Now my question is that Allahabad also has had a tradition of writers who are originally academics. Harivansh Rai Bachchanji also belonged to the university.
Absolutely.
Now, even otherwise, people who are academics or who have been specializing in the particular language, English, they are the ones who go on to become big writers. Now here's a man who's a diplomat, a BA, so to say, then he goes on to write, and now you are rubbing your shoulders with probably the best in the world of writers. So when you sit with them and when you are sitting as an equal with them, is there any snobbery on their part that, well,
I don't see myself as an equal, I see myself as an imposter, honestly. That what am I doing here? Even if you look at the pictures of me at the Oscar, when Slumdog Millionaire won the best picture, then Anil Kapoor went on to the stage.
Okay, I'll put it more bluntly.
Irfan Khan said कि अरे ये तो stage पे जा रहा है, हमें भी चलना चाहिए. So Irfan Khan dragged me, and I was worried कि I'll get arrested, by somebody. How can I go to the stage? He said, नहीं चलो.
Vikas bhai, मैं
go to the stage. And if you look at my picture, everybody is looking at the camera. I am the only one looking like this. That what is a professional diplomat doing in the Kodak theatre?
विकास भाई, मैं सवाल को उल्टा करके पूछ रहा हूँ. When you sit with them as a very successful writer or an author, is there an acceptance of yours as an equal, or is there some reservation?
Look, writer, nobody sees that what is the degree with which you are coming to as
Thankfully,
a writer.
thankfully.
In fact, many people, some publishers have said that when you get a manuscript by somebody who's gone to a creative writing school, you can spot it from a mile away. That it is so mannered that this person has definitely gone to a creative writing workshop. So in a way, I did not have that baggage. So that's why I was able to write very unself-consciously, and I really wrote as a reader. I said, okay, I have never had English literature as my subject. I have never gone to a creative writing workshop. What is the kind of book that I would like to read? And I think it was that 35 years of reading that I did in Allahabad, that really allowed me to write this novel in 2 months. So there is no sense that, okay, he is just a BA or whatever. No, the question is, has your story resonated with the world or not? I think that is the only criteria that, when people are inviting you to a literary festival, that is the only criteria they have. And look, thanks to Slumdog Millionaire, the story has resonated with the world. Yeah.
Hi, Vikas. I'll just turn this on its toes and say Allahabad has so much of music, literature, history, and memory. Do we have a chance of seeing you going back to external affairs and becoming the number 2 to Mr. Jaishankar? Or
No, that is not through external affairs, that is through politics. Now you can, government is a one-way service, Once you leave, you cannot go back. And once you have retired, actually, you cannot go back.
But Mr. Jaishankar did that.
So yes, Mr. Jaishankar retired. Then he joined the Tatas as a consultant, and then Prime Minister said, I want to make you External Affairs Minister. So that's how he came back.
Expect that from Allahabad and you.
No, yes. On one side, Allahabad has given India the maximum number of Prime Ministers, so let's not forget that. But look, I think politics is not my cup of tea at all. I think there are a lot of compromises and sacrifices one needs to make. I am happy where I am at the moment.
Yeah, hi, good evening. Bazm-e-Virasat के इस प्लेटफॉर्म पे मेरा एक क्वेश्चन है.
हाँ.
We are speaking about the glory of Allahabad University. मेरे बड़े नाना जी भी यहीं से पढ़े. He went on to become the ambassador of Mauritius.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But आज के ज़माने में जैसे आपने कहा कि instead of going to Stephens, you chose to study in Allahabad University, but the present generation, they all run to Delhi University. So, what are you doing for your alma mater? What is the government going to do for universities like Allahabad University, Banaras Hindu University, Patna University, which has lost the charm with the present generation?
Look, this is a question I think better addressed to academics, those who have been involved with university administration, etc., that why have the standards of universities fallen? At one time, Allahabad University used to contribute 70% of the officers to the Indian civil services. 70%. I think no other university in any part of the world can ever match that. Today, I think we are lucky if you even make it to the PCS from here. So definitely, I think things have gone down. Now, what is the reason for that? I am not the best person to... All I know is my own graduation took 2 years because of student politics. And I think, once politicization started happening, I think a lot of other things happened. So this is, I think, a very serious question which needs to be addressed very seriously by people, that how do we bring up the standards of Indian universities in general? Because look, as a diplomat, I have visited so many countries, My last posting was High Commissioner to Canada. And Canada has 96 universities, and if you go to any of their campuses, they are absolutely world class. Whereas, except the Indian Institute of Science, not a single Indian university features in the top 200 of international universities. Even the IITs and the IIMs do not figure there. Of course, there are other parameters, internationalization, how many international students you have, on which parameter we don't do well. But at the end of the day, these are international rankings, and if India does not figure there, then we have to do some soul searching. What is it that we are not doing right? What can we do better so that we are also right? Because the quality of education is outstanding. I mean, Satya Nadella is the head of Microsoft, and he studied in India. Sundar Pichai studied in India. They all went from here. So the base that we provide is outstanding. But I think we are not able to build on that base. I think that is where I think we are, something is happening which should not happen. And the other thing I would say is that we have stopped imparting education. We are imparting degrees now. You know, that has become the other problem. People are only interested in the degree, that what degree do you have? Because when I apply for a job, they are only interested in what degree do I have. But if we really give as much emphasis on education, not so much on the degree part. Most people are now going to, you know, these cram centers for appearing for the IIT or the IIMs, you know, and places like that. So I think this commercialization of the education, I think that is also, it has something to do with it. And as I said, this is not a flippant answer. I think it needs a much more serious study. I am only just saying that the fact that India does not figure in the top 200 in international universities is a matter of serious introspection and concern for us.
Okay, hi Vikas. Here.
Yes.
So, you know, I'm going back again to you as a writer from a diplomat. From the last question.
My God, amazing.
I just want to ask you one thing. Like you mentioned that, you know, you wrote 4 pages, you pitched it, and you thought in your mind, if it doesn't go through, you will. And then later on, you talked about passion and how we should go about passion. So I said, did it contradict that when you were writing, even those 4 pages?
When I'm writing?
Even those 4 pages to pitch, it's a dream, it's passion, right? So how do you kind of not just throw it and said, you thought in your mind that I'll forget it if it doesn't get picked up?
Yes, because you see, as a professional diplomat, and as I told you, I wrote at the time of the gatekeeper culture, you had to go through an agent and a publisher. If you didn't have an agent, you didn't have a publisher, then, because I knew of so many people who had written novels which had never been published, which were languishing in their cupboard. And I didn't want to go down that route. Because I was pretty happy as a diplomat, and the government of India was paying me a pretty good amount of money, you know, as a diplomat. So it was not that, it was just something, it was like a creative urge. That look, and because I got inspired by the people in the foreign service who were writing. So I was very strategic about it in the sense, I knew that it was a very unique story. This much I knew. Nobody had ever told the story through the medium of a quiz show. So I knew that I was onto something very unique. But whether that unique story was saleable or not, I had no idea, because I had no connection to the publishing world at all. I did not know a single writer, a single publisher. I had no knowledge of that at all. In fact, even these agents that I was sending my, 4.5 chapters to, I was reading in the, acknowledgements of Arundhati Roy and, Pankaj Mishra and people like that who have they thanked, they always thank their agent. So that's how I came to know that these are the agents. But the idea was, okay, I'm sending this out, and if they pick it up, then something will happen. If I don't get, honestly, it was out of my mind. It was not that I was wedded to this, no, I have to finish the story, this is a wonderful story. Maybe it should have been like that, but it was not like that. But the very fact, once I got an agent, I said, how many authors even get an agent? Now I have an agent. Because what happened was, the day I signed up this agent, the same day they told me I was being sent to Delhi as Director Pakistan. So I said, as Director Pakistan, I can forget about writing this novel, I can forget about finishing this novel. And I had 1 month left. So that's why I wrote like a maniac. 1 weekend I did 20,000 words. And I finished this novel on the 11th of September 2003. On the 12th of September, I was sitting in an Air India plane going back to Delhi.
Well, that was a fantastic session. And
Hello, sir. I have a question as well.
this will be the last question. Okay, Tishu.
Thank you, sir.
अब तो ऑर्गेनाइजर का ही सवाल है, तो फिर तो आपको लेना ही पड़ेगा.
विकास भाई, सच बोलना.
हाँ.
दिल पे हाथ रख के. और आप इलाहाबाद में बैठे हैं.
हाँ.
विकास सर की एक नॉवल पे 6 सितंबर को मैंने भी एक शो बनाया, द ग्रेट इंडियन मॉडल. आप वेस्टर्न रीडर्स के लिए लिखते हैं कि हिंदुस्तानियों के लिए भी लिखते हैं?
110% हिंदुस्तानियों के लिए, because as I said, I write as an insider for insiders. That is why you see मैं मुहावरों का भी प्रयोग करता हूँ. Because many times, if I start saying, अरे 47 लैंग्वेज में ये जा चुकी है, ये तो फ्रेंच वाले के समझ में ही नहीं आएगी, ये तो इटालियन के समझ में नहीं आएगी, ये तो इंडोनेशियन के समझ में नहीं आएगी, then what will happen is, आप अपनी नॉवल को इतना डम डाउन कर देंगे, लोएस्ट कॉमन डिनोमिनेटर को अपील करने के लिए, कि वो नॉवल ही बर्बाद हो जाएगी। तो मैं हमेशा ये कहता हूँ, there is no such thing as a global novel. कोई ऐसा नहीं है कि मैं आज ग्लोबल नॉवल लिखने जा रहा हूँ जो पूरी दुनिया में छा जाएगी। It is always a local novel which becomes global because the themes in those novels resonate with the rest of the world.
Wow.
The theme of the novel, of the first novel, was the underdog winning. Now that is a theme that resonates with everyone. अर्जेंटीना में भी आप फुटबॉल खेलते हैं तो जिस टीम में मेसी वो नहीं होता है, उनका टॉप खिलाड़ी आप उसके लिए रूट करते हैं. So because the theme resonated, that's why the book went global. But it was a very local novel, rooted in the Indian reality. And I think that is the key. You should never ever think. उस नॉवल में ही इतने मेरे झड़प हुई क्योंकि उसमें एक जगह मैंने लिखा है कि वो स्टील का उसने कप लगा के दीवार पे रखा कि सुना कि मैं उधर से क्या हो रहा है. उसने कहा अरे भाई ये स्टील कप क्या होता है, स्टील कप तो हम लोग कोई यूज़ नहीं करते. मैंने कहा इंडिया में स्टील कप यूज़ होता है, इंडिया में स्टील के ग्लास में हम लोग पानी पीते हैं, वहाँ नहीं पीते हैं. So you had to tell many things to the Western editors who were not able to understand कि ये स्टील का कप कहाँ से आ गया है. So I never dumbed it down. I always write. I trust my reader. If he can make sense of it, if I can make sense of it, he can make sense of it.
Okay, so the session ends here. Wait for the next session.